The moment she pointed at his shoes and ordered him to clean them, the entire restaurant went silent. She had no idea that the man standing in front of her had just made a decision that would cost her company $15 billion. He was dressed in an old gray jacket, his shoes were worn from years of walking his daughter to school and working whatever jobs he could find, and there was nothing about him that looked powerful. But behind that tired face was a secret account containing more money than the woman in front of him could ever imagine. She believed she was humiliating a poor single father. In reality, she was pushing the one person who could bring her empire to its knees. Before we continue, if you believe kindness matters, people deserve second chances, and no one should be judged by their clothes or circumstances, please like this video, share it with someone who needs this message, leave a comment, and subscribe to Dad's Thread. Your support helps us bring more emotional stories about kindness, courage, and second chances. Daniel had learned long ago that life did not always reward good people quickly. After losing his wife in a tragic accident, he became the only parent to his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. He worked mornings unloading deliveries, afternoons repairing equipment at a small warehouse, and evenings driving wherever he could find extra work. Every dollar had a purpose. Rent. Groceries. School supplies. Lily's medicine when she caught a cold. Sometimes Daniel would sit at the kitchen table after Lily fell asleep and count the money in his wallet 3 times, hoping the numbers would somehow become larger. They never did. What Lily did not know was that her father had once lived a completely different life. Years earlier, Daniel had co-founded a technology company with a close friend. Before the company became valuable, Daniel quietly sold his ownership stake and placed the money into a private investment structure. Over the years, those investments grew beyond anything he had expected. His total holdings eventually reached nearly $15 billion. But Daniel never changed his life. He had watched wealthy people lose themselves chasing status, and after losing his wife, he decided that money would never become the center of his daughter's world. He wanted Lily to grow up believing that a person's worth came from what they did for others, not what they owned. So he kept his fortune private, lived modestly, and allowed the world to believe he was simply a struggling single father. One rainy afternoon, Daniel took Lily to an upscale restaurant after she received the highest grade in her class. It was the first time in months they had celebrated anything together. Lily wore a simple blue dress, and Daniel wore the cleanest jacket he owned. As they entered, several wealthy guests glanced at them before looking away. Daniel noticed but said nothing. They were seated near the entrance, and Lily was excitedly telling him about a drawing she had made at school when a woman in an expensive cream-colored suit walked through the restaurant. Her name was Victoria Hale, the CEO of Hale Industries, one of the most powerful companies in the city. She was surrounded by executives and assistants who treated her every movement like a command. Victoria stopped when she saw Daniel's shoes. They were old, scratched, and still marked with dried mud from the rainy sidewalk. Instead of walking around him, she stared at him with visible disgust. She had been having a terrible day, and Daniel's appearance became an easy target for her frustration. In front of everyone, she ordered him to clean her shoes or leave the restaurant. Daniel looked down at her polished heels, then at Lily, who had suddenly stopped smiling. His daughter lowered her eyes because she was embarrassed, but Daniel felt something deeper than embarrassment. He felt the familiar pain of being judged for having less. He could have shouted. He could have revealed his identity and watched the color disappear from Victoria's face. Instead, he quietly wiped the mud from his own shoe with a napkin and told Lily they were leaving. He refused to teach his daughter that dignity required humiliating someone else in return. As they walked outside, Lily asked why the woman had treated him that way. Daniel smiled sadly and told her that sometimes people who have everything still believe they have nothing unless they can make someone else feel small. Lily held his hand tighter, but Daniel could feel the anger rising inside him. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Daniel sat alone in his small apartment. Rain tapped against the window, and an old photograph of his wife sat beside him. He remembered the promise he had made years ago, that his money would never control his heart. He opened his laptop, logged into an account that almost no one knew existed, and stared at the number on the screen. Nearly $15 billion were under his control through a network of investments, trusts, and corporate holdings. One of those investments was a major financial position in Hale Industries. Daniel had never interfered with Victoria's company. He had never wanted power over her. But now he realized that his silence had allowed people like her to believe that money gave them permission to treat others without dignity. The next morning, Daniel made one phone call. He did not ask anyone to hurt Victoria. He did not threaten her. He simply instructed his financial team to withdraw his $15 billion position from Hale Industries and redirect the capital toward companies that valued ethical leadership, employee welfare, and community development. The decision sent shockwaves through the financial world. Hale Industries suddenly lost its largest private source of stability. Investors panicked. Banks demanded explanations. Business partners began questioning Victoria's leadership. Within hours, the company she had spent years building began collapsing under pressure. Victoria could not understand what had happened. Her executives searched for answers, but every report led back to the same mystery investor. Someone had quietly withdrawn $15 billion. The identity of the investor was hidden behind layers of legal protection. Victoria spent the entire night trying to stop the collapse. But the damage was already spreading. Employees feared losing their jobs. Suppliers demanded payment. Investors abandoned the company. The woman who had once walked through rooms believing everyone should serve her was suddenly standing alone in a boardroom, realizing that her empire could disappear because of a decision she had made in a restaurant. Then, 3 days later, Victoria received an unexpected invitation to a private meeting. She entered a quiet office expecting lawyers and financial advisors. Instead, she saw Daniel sitting beside a window, wearing the same gray jacket and the same worn shoes. For several seconds, she could not move. She recognized him immediately. The man she had humiliated was the mysterious investor who had withdrawn $15 billion. But Daniel did not smile. He did not celebrate her fear. He simply told her that he had not destroyed her company because she insulted his shoes. He had withdrawn because he finally understood the kind of culture her leadership created. If a CEO could humiliate an ordinary father in public without feeling shame, what happened to employees who had no power to defend themselves? What happened to workers who went home crying because someone above them treated them as worthless? Daniel explained that his money was never meant to punish her. It was meant to remind her that power without compassion was fragile. Victoria broke down. For the first time in years, she admitted that she had become the very kind of person she once promised herself she would never become. She remembered how her own father had worked 2 jobs when she was young and had been treated poorly by wealthy customers. She had forgotten the humiliation he endured so she could have a better life. Daniel's words brought those memories back. He offered her a choice. He could allow the company to disappear completely, or she could accept responsibility, rebuild the business around its employees, compensate workers who had been mistreated, establish a foundation for struggling families, and personally apologize to the people she had looked down upon. Victoria agreed. The company did not return to its former glory overnight, but something more important began changing. Employees started believing in their leadership again. Victoria began visiting community centers instead of luxury clubs. She funded scholarships for children of single parents and quietly paid medical bills for workers who could not afford treatment. Months later, Daniel returned to the same restaurant with Lily. His shoes were still old. His jacket was still simple. But this time, Victoria was there waiting for him. She did not look at his shoes. She looked him in the eyes and apologized. Daniel accepted her apology, not because she deserved to be forgotten, but because Lily was watching. He wanted his daughter to understand that forgiveness was not weakness. It was the courage to stop hatred from becoming part of your heart. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes kindness still matters, and subscribe to Dad's Thread. Every engagement helps these stories reach people who may need a reminder that their circumstances do not define their worth. And before the story ends, I want you to do something special. Comment, "Kindness is greater than wealth," if you believe that a person's character matters more than their money, clothes, job, or social status. Daniel never needed to prove that he was worth $15 billion. His greatest wealth was something no bank could hold: the ability to walk away from humiliation without becoming cruel, to protect his daughter's heart without teaching her hatred, and to use his fortune not simply to become more powerful, but to give people another chance. The woman who once demanded that he clean her shoes eventually learned that the dirtiest thing in a person's life is not mud on their feet. It is pride in their heart. And Daniel's worn shoes, the very thing she had mocked, became a reminder that sometimes the people we look down on are carrying more strength, sacrifice, and love than we could ever imagine.